All right. So if you're in the room for hearing about how to become a servant leader and some of the stories that I have to share about leading from the trenches, both from my own personal experience and from talking to other leaders and other sources, you're in the right room. If you're not here for this, if you're here for something like machine learning, I'm not going to be able to cover that till tomorrow morning at 9:45. If you're here for Java, I'm not talking about that this year, C#, not this year, Python, JavaScript, React, Vue, any of those, not in here, not today. At least not now. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dutkiewicz. I am commonly known as Saduki. It's the Sa from Sarah and Dookie because my husband's nickname was Dookie as a kid growing up. The story behind that, the nickname and why I go by that is because you see Dutkiewicz. That is a mess of letters. So many people look at that and go, I don't even want to attempt pronouncing it. I'm like, yeah, try to spell that too. My 5-year-old can. We taught him the pattern. The 3-year-old, not so much. But so in college, my husband and I, we were with an even number of friends, and we all were deciding on where to go for dinner, and we were split down the line. And so my friend Pete's like, the Saduki counts as one vote. And we're like, what did you call us? The Saduki? I like that. And so it has stuck ever since. And then when I got married, I took his last name, so the nickname has followed me personally since then. So I own Cleveland Tech Consulting, LLC. I'm an independent consultant out of Cleveland, Ohio. I focus on training and mentoring, C#, Java, JavaScript, honestly, any language at this point. It's easy for me if I don't know it to pick it up. I've been in the field for over 15 years on the tech side through various tech roles, from tech support to IT to development to most recently in the education space, both in the trainer role and also in charge of the trainers. So a little bit of management there too. And this is one of the quotes that has always just kind of been in my heart as a leader, is that it's better to lead from behind and to put others in front. I always like working with a team of people and letting them do their thing, enabling them where I can, making sure to set them up for success. It was something that I've always done from, even when I was a kid in school with school projects, and then when I ran for student council, and when I was trying to go for student council in high school, all of that stuff was, I'm here to support the team, but I can lead while supporting the team. I've always commanded with authority while still kind of just blending in at the same time. So this quote has always rung strong for me. Leadership has come to me naturally. Now, a lot of people are like, you're quiet though. Like when you first meet me, I'm introverted, I'm quiet. This kind of big group, I would just be like, gotta go. But because I'm speaking, can't really disappear. But for me, I was always the quiet one. I was always observing what was going on around me, and then being able to make those leadership calls from observing all that. And it's funny because I would speak up, and when I would speak up, they're like, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, we should do that. Oh, this problem is fixed. Why didn't you say something earlier? And at that point, I'm like, because I'm still watching you guys, trying to figure out what you guys are doing. And usually I can't get a word in edgewise anywhere, so. So for me, I was always young, quiet, but I was always aware of leadership. My parents, my family in general has been very instrumental in that. So one of the things my mom has always told me is don't take yourself too seriously. Anybody who comes in contact with me knows that I laugh a lot. I'm very happy in nature. I'm usually supporting anybody and everybody trying to build our tech community. I don't care whether you're in a different language, different country, different community altogether. Honestly, we're one huge tech community, and I want to see that grow. And so I'm always laughing and causing trouble. I am mischief. That's me. That's disapproving mom with the gorilla. I do have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, 2 boys, so that's the look they'd probably see from me. But I saw that, I was like, I have to laugh. Because if I take myself too seriously, my impact on others, they're going to see that I take myself seriously. Their reaction to that, not so good. When I am myself, unapologetically, when I am giggling and laughing and making jokes and making light of stuff, self-deprecating humor and sarcasm, right here. I am perfectly fine with that. People realize how I react to things. It makes it a lot easier to work as a team. Now, anybody here deal with paramedics at all? Maybe paramedics or medical people in your family? Anybody? Some? Okay. So I'm going to tell you a quick story about CARE. It's the Cleveland Association of Rescue Employees. This is the union for the Cleveland paramedics for the city of Cleveland, Ohio. My dad helped co-found this union way back before I was born. And he stayed active in it throughout his career. He was a paramedic for the city of Cleveland for over 30 years. So watching him as little pint-sized me, I got to see him work with other paramedics to form this. I also got to see him in the president role. He was leading the union. Not only was he leading the union though, that was something he was doing on the side compared to his day job of being a paramedic and going out on calls and doing what paramedics do. So watching him do that, and then watching him lead, watching him take calls at all hours of the day, being available to the paramedics, being able to just reassure them and constantly work with them. And if they need grievances filed, he would work with them on that. And if they had a big celebration, that new baby, he was there for that. So watching him be there, be available, that really resounded with me. Watching him dealing with all walks of life. He dealt with paramedics. He dealt with politicians, because unions, politicians, they kind of go hand in hand at times. Lobbyists, throw them in there too. And we're talking not just the local politicians, but we're dealing with state level and sometimes federal. So some of those politicians that are out there nowadays, my dad has dealt with them. And I know who they are in terms of who they are as a person, not just as the politician. Do I care about politics? Do I care about people as a person? Oh, absolutely. And so did my dad. So it was interesting to watch as a kid that anytime we went out, he would interact with these people, not for their title, but treat them as the individual that they are. Treat them as the person they are. Treat them with the empathy. To watch my dad do all of that, little me at that time didn't realize that impact. Older me realizes that I watched my dad carefully, and I made those notes. That quiet observer of me, apparently I did that with my dad too, because that has really instilled those values into me of when I'm in a leading position, whether I have a title or not, if I'm in a group and somebody needs a leader, I'll step in. But I take advantage of my team and understanding who they are as people, because that was something my dad showed me. Now, something that drove me nuts about the fact that my dad was a union leader and knew all these people is trying to go out anywhere in public with him. I don't want to go out in public with Dad. My brothers, my sister and I, we always told Mom, do we have to take Dad? Do we have to? Because it's one of those where, well, I mean, if you guys are CodeMash and friends of mine, you guys know I'll say, oh, hi, Paul. Oh, hi, Calvin. Oh, hi, Brian. I'll be saying hi, John. I'll be saying hi to everybody. Takes a few steps. Hi, Michael. And it'll be like, okay, man, Sarah, you don't stop. You just keep going and saying hi to everybody. Hi, Matt, who's sitting back there. I turned into the person that I was just like, I don't want to go out with my dad. He's going to stop all the time and talk to people, and we just wanted to keep going. So Matt, from where I worked back there, yeah, I understand now why you don't always follow me around, because it's like, come on, Sarah, come on, you know too many people. But watching my dad, I was so frustrated with that as a kid, but as I got older, I realized why he did that. It's the relationship that you establish with the people. Again, the treating the person as a human and not just as an employee, not just as their title, not just as whatever role they have. So watching my dad, I also learned why he does that and how he uses that to network with other people. And so I talk to everybody. Why do I talk to everybody? Because you know what? I never know how I can help them. Never know if they can help me. Never know who's out there, but when we all work together, we can all help each other out. We can all elevate each other. That's what I like to do. Learned that one from my dad. As much as I hated going out in public with him because we would never get anywhere, I understood that. Now, this is a book that I read, let's say probably late teens, early 20s. This is called Leading from the Heart, and it's by a gentleman named Jack Kahl. Yes, that's how you pronounce his last name. Why do I know that? That's my maiden name. That's my dad's cousin who actually wrote the book. So servant leadership, It's in my blood. So when people are like, Sarah, why do you do your leading this way? It kind of was born this way. Sorry, John, I can't break into a song on that. So leading from the heart. So how many of you are familiar with duct tape? Like the one with the duck and the brand? Yeah. So that's Jack Kahl. Jack Kahl had worked with, at that point it was Manco, and then Manco got bought out by Henkel, and then Sure Tape. I think it's Sure Tape nowadays. But so in his experience with how he bought Manco, worked with his dad, has passed it on to his kids, he has learned all sorts of experience as an entrepreneur. And he also worked with this guy named Sam Walton. Familiar with Sam's Club or Walmart? That guy. So Jack and Sam have been friends. And so Jack learned a lot from Sam and how to build a business and how to lead. And a lot of the lessons that are in this book, I'll show some slides on those, but not all of them. But you can see that there's a lot of heart. There's a lot of emotion. And that's something that you'll see some people be afraid of. They're afraid to lead with emotion. I'll tell you guys now, I show emotion all the time. I don't show it haphazardly. I'm very cautious about it. But at the same time, I'm an emotional being. I'm a very energetic being at times. Now, one of the things that Jack had pointed out was, as a leader, you should not be leading with an ego. Check your egos out at the door. Once you're at work, no egos there. Egos aside. Why? Because ego puts a wall in front of you. Ego doesn't make you approachable. Well, I'm this big person with this big title who has all these big accomplishments. And then people are like, oh no, this person is too smart, and then they don't want to deal with you. Or you get real belligerent and really set in your thing. Egos are not worth it. Egos will push people away. And as a leader, you don't want to push people away. You want people on your team. You want people on your team to help you achieve whatever goal you're trying to do. And you need to keep in mind that that goal that you're working with as a team, it's not about you personally, that's your team's goal. You all own it. And as a leader, you'll own it with your team. When you're successful, raise your team and make sure they get that credit. When they're not successful, own it as a leader and figure out how you guys can learn from that, how you can do better. Don't let an ego get in the way. How many of you guys are familiar with Jack Welch and General Electric? GE's everywhere. Lights, appliances, they're everywhere. There are 4 different E's and a P that he uses for leadership. He talks about energy. He says a good leader is somebody who's having high personal energy. You need to be self-confident. You need to be able to believe in yourself on this. Not only though do I need to have energy about myself, but I need to energize others. I need to say, how am I interacting with people? How does that make you feel? I do a talk on user experience for developers because, well, developers should understand users. And one of the things I talk about is, how do you feel before, leading up to, so you know you're going to go. So think about this. You're hearing this talk. You're like, you know what, I saw this talk, I want to be here. How did you feel about this talk going into it? Now that you're here, how do you feel? And when you leave, how do you feel? That's your user experience as a person sitting in a talk. We need to understand as leaders, okay, did I energize my crowd? Are they going to go with something that they can believe in and carry forward? Ideally, that's what we want to hope for. A good leader has that. A good leader, one of the E's that I use is edge. You can't be afraid to make unpopular decisions. That's one of the tough things that I've talked with a lot of newer leaders. So for me, I've always been mentoring people dealing with just getting into the field. So beginners. But some of those beginners are now getting into mid-level. They're getting into leadership positions. They're getting into team leads and tech leads. And they're like, I can't make an unpopular decision. They're going to hate me. My team's not going to like me. And I'm like, it's not about whether they like you or not. It's do they respect you? Respect is a lot more important than whether they just like you. the edge thing, it's tough to make an unpopular decision. But how many of you are parents? All right, so you're going to understand when I say that as parents, you already have an edge. You already have to tell your kids no and understand that there's something called tough love. As leaders, that's what edge is. That's your tough love. I always treated, and Paul here could tell you, I treat my apprentices in the classroom as my own kids. Of course, there were days when I would say, use your words, because they're always like, oh, we're too afraid to use these new words. No, use what you know, and we'll teach you the right stuff. But yeah, there were times when I was like, yeah, you can't do that. I still remember I had an apprentice, they were working on their project. They had 4 weeks to do it, and this was the last week to get this project done. And they had kind of shrugged off meetings. And finally, their instructor looked at me and said, can you take a look at their project? And I looked at it and I went, all right, all of you guys, conference room now. And they just all went white. And I looked at this and I said, you guys did this the entire wrong way. You have to flip it around. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you guys Ajaxed all the things instead of actually doing a mix of both. They all went ghost white, like, we have to throw it out. I'm like, some of it, yes. Having to deliver bad news like that, having to make that unpopular decision of, I know you only have a week left, but you gotta scrap it, was something that had to be made. Did they hate me for it? They weren't happy, let's put it that way. Did they respect me for it though? Yeah, because I'm still in touch with those guys today too. We need to be able to execute. We need to know, can we deliver what we're promising? Can we deliver, whether it's a product, whether it's a concept, whether it's a performing team? Can we deliver? If you have that ability to deliver, can you deliver when there are troubles? Let's say you're dealing with suppliers. Suppliers are like, we can't come up with this material in time. How do you handle that? Can you still execute on the goal? So we've got energy, energize others, edge, and execute. Those are the 4 E's. There's also a P. And that P is passion. And if you have passion as a leader, if you have passion about the goals for the team, these other 4 will come together and will solidify. You need to be passionate about whatever it is you're going for. Something else that Jack had mentioned in his book, Leading from the Heart, was that we need to grow leaders at all levels. So whether you are somebody who's in the trenches at the lowest level, or a middle manager, or a VP or C level, you want to take a look at all of your leaders at all levels. Why? Because what goes on at the lowest level will impact the things that go on at the higher levels. And those people will rise, and they will help lead, and they will help lead your company into hopefully the vision you want. But you should be growing them at all levels. Something else that's important for us as servant leaders, as people who we lead while we're working alongside others, is our character. So this is John Wooden. Anybody seen him when he was a head coach at UCLA? This guy was super successful. He had 10 NCAA championships in 12 years. 10 out of 12. That's unheard of. Now, mind you, I'm a Browns fan, so I'm used to bad records. So that just blows my mind. But no, he had a really successful career. But he had mentioned that you want to be worried more about your character than your reputation. Reputation is what people think about you. The character is who you really are. Yeah, I know that's not what it is verbatim, but that's essentially his thing is, it's about you as the person and not what people are necessarily saying about you. And these are the key things that help make your character. What's your credibility? What's your integrity, and what's your core values? People who know me know that I have certain morals and ethics that, if challenged, I will raise my eyebrows at it. I will think hard. But if it's something that's truly against my core values, I'll push back and I won't do it. Done it before, we'll do it again. Because that's who I am. That's the character that I am. Not that guy with the green check mark, but yeah. Creative vision. Yeah, that's Bob Ross. He is much more creative than I will ever be because I'm not an artsy kind of type. I'm a developer, true fact. But as leaders, we need to have both creativity and vision. Vision is so that we can see where are we going, where are we taking our team. Creativity, don't think of it as you have to be artsy creative. Too many people have seen the word creative and they're like, whoa, I can't draw. I can't put colors together that belong together. Lemon chiffon, Dodger blue, that's what I do. That's how you know if I've been on your webpage, because there's Dodger blue as a background, lemon chiffon, colored text. Probably not a good combination, guys. But I am not creative in the sense of the graphics type, but I am creative in terms of solutions. Yes, there may be a business problem where you need to take steps 1, 2, and 3, but I have a different perspective of that. And I think I could take steps A, B, and C, or 1, 2, and A. I will take a different path, not necessarily the one that's anticipated. Why? And this is something that you guys will have to remember too. Your background, your career, whatever steps you've made along the way, they help form who you are. They help make you who you are today. Don't ever discredit that. Don't ever apologize for the fact that you did whatever you did. Don't apologize for the fact that you didn't start in programming or that you didn't think this was for you. You are who you are. Own it. Own yourself. And with the creativity, understand that people think one way. It's okay to think the other way. It's okay to think differently. You want to make sure that you're giving direction that's easy to understand. You want your whole team to be on board with what you need. You want it both inspirational and motivational. You want not just, okay, here's our vision, but you want to generate a team passion, a team camaraderie. And being in the trenches, if you know your people, as that individual person, you learn what motivates them. When you learn what motivates them, what inspires them, that makes creating that vision a lot easier. How many of you guys have heard of Surviving the World? So Surviving the World is a web comic thing. It's hard to say comic because, so we've got this professor, and he does various whiteboard, chalkboard drawings with various quotes and such. But I love this one that Dante did, which is, leadership is responsibility, not privilege. It is action, not position. It is guidance, not knowledge. And it is outcome, not disposition. He really hits on what is key for us to be leaders. And even as servant leaders, we've got to do all of this, regardless of things like, okay, do I have a title? Some people will be like, oh, I have to have a title to lead. A title is not important. If you feel like you've got what it takes to lead, then it is your responsibility to trust that and run with it. It is action, not position. Again, that whole, your title doesn't matter. You don't have to be a chief officer. You don't have to be a president, a vice president, an owner. You could be just somebody who we just hired who's over in tech support, for example. Or you're just in QA or a dev or a business analyst. Whatever your role is, that shouldn't matter. That is a role. That doesn't make up necessarily who you are as a human being. Remember, you have a career path too. So it's action. It's how do you carry yourself? What do you do to help work with the team around you? Guidance, not knowledge. You don't have to know everything. That is probably one of the biggest things I've seen leaders go, where people are like, well, yeah, that person's a leader. They should know all this stuff. Guys, we all have brains, right? They're all about the same size-ish. Could you know everything in the book? Do you think leaders could? We don't have to know everything. It's not about knowledge. It's about guidance. It's about the things that you've done and what you've seen work. It's what you've seen from what others are doing in the field and being able to guide your team that direction. An outcome, not disposition. How do things turn out? So we're going to talk about some of my experiences in the field, some decisions I made that others are kind of like, you did what? But I'll explain why. And why servant leadership? It's not like you're leading, you're not demanding like, oh, I'm gonna lead you all, and you all have to do what I tell you right now, and all of you guys stand up. No, don't do it. I am not the dictatorial one. I am not one to demand. I am more one to command. And we'll talk about that. How many of you guys know who this guy is? Mr. Rogers. I loved Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood as a kid. And my kids are now watching Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, which is this all over again. He teaches real grown-up concepts, real grown-up lessons to kids and makes it very approachable. This is him with his Land of Make-Believe. He was known for talking about public TV and how we should continue to make it accessible and how there should be funding and such. He was great about it. One of my favorite quotes for him is, one of the greatest gifts you can give anybody is the gift of your honest self. And I was just in a session with a lady who was talking about wrestling and testing, and she said that, like what I put in my Twitter profile, which is, be yourself. Be yourself unapologetically. Don't be afraid of who you are. Like I tell you guys, I'm happy, giggly, bubbly, mischievous one. But that's who I am, and I own it. I'm also one who will tell people, if you need guidance or mentoring on a particular topic, I don't sugarcoat things at all. It's just who I am. So I am always my honest self. As a leader, it's important to be yourself. It's important to be authentic. Because if you show people who you are normally, they can relate to you. You want to be relatable. That's why I also tell people, how many of you are on Twitter? Okay, if you're not on Twitter, it's a good way to chat with other people and see what's going on in the community. It's also good to find people who you can relate to, who can help you, like when you're like, no, this is a funk and I don't know how to break it. And I tell people, my Twitter personality is who I am all the time. You get the instructor me, the educator me. You get the techie me. You do get mom me. Occasionally mom shows up in there too. But you will get me all the time. You won't get a persona. So you will see all the different things in me. Why? Because people in the community need to see who I am so that if they have questions, they can relate to someone. They go, oh yeah. And I didn't realize how important it was until I was talking to one of my apprentices. And they're like, the reason why I signed up for this particular program is because I knew you were here. And I'm like, okay. They're like, and you're a mom. And it's important to see that moms can do tech. And I'm like, oh yeah. I didn't realize that was supposed to challenge me. But having that vision and being able for people to relate to that is important. As leaders, it's important to listen. Sometimes you might need to have a meeting with your team where you all leave your electronic devices, your laptops, your phones, leave them at your desks. They actually go talk. Go have a pencil and paper meeting or a whiteboard meeting. Leave the digital stuff out. Digital distractions will cause a lot more missed details. As leaders, we need to be able to listen to the people who are talking to us. Listen to their stories. Because if you listen carefully, you may catch a detail that will make things work a lot better. Or you may catch a detail that you might not have seen at first. For me, so I've been in the field over 15 years. I've been in management almost 15 years because, well, I had a very short start and then a bad step that led me into management. And the reason why I say it was a bad step is because it was an unfortunate situation where we had a boss who wasn't listening, and we had a boss who was doing some really stupid things he probably shouldn't have been doing, making the females on my team uncomfortable. And the guys on the team were coming to me and going, sir, we see what's going on, what do we do? If I wasn't paying attention to my team and if I wasn't listening, I would not have seen it. Because this guy went out of his way to not do anything in front of me. Everything happened when I wasn't around. But because my team knew that I would listen, they came to me. I ended up telling them, document, 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 we got the guy gone. And I ended up moving into management officially at that point. Because I listened. Because it was a tough time. That is probably one of the toughest situations is when they're like, this guy is hitting on all the women. How do we handle this? I felt bad for the guys too, because the guys would come to me. So it was a half and half team mix. And they're like, what do we do? And I'm like, you guys need to do a couple things. I'm like, if you see it happen, document it. I'm like, and if the ladies are getting stressed out, go on smoke breaks, go for walks, go talk them off the ledge. They're like, we can do that. I'm like, please, please, please do. But this is how we do it to survive. And my team actually did survive that. Everybody stayed despite the drama, and we got rid of the guy who was causing the trouble. But that was because I listened. All right. We also want to be able to trust and respect until burned. Some people say, well, trust is earned, respect is earned. And I'm saying from leaders, you need to go into that relationship with that already there and let it continue to build. Understand that people are people, and it could be burned. But don't go into it going, okay, it's burned first and we start up. No, no, no. Because people are coming to you as a leader because they see that leadership in you. They already have that respect and trust for you coming to you. Though sometimes you might be tossed into a team that you haven't met yet, so you might have to build it up. But go in there with trust and respect. Because if you have that, it's easy to lead. And yes, this is a crazy picture for trust and respect, because yes, that's a vuvuzela. And yes, this is Cleveland on St. Patrick's Day. How many of you guys are from the Cleveland area? All right, so you guys know, how crazy is it downtown for St. Patrick's Day? Can you make some noise? That is not what St. Patrick's Day sounds like in Cleveland. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm a native Clevelander, born and raised. And so watching St. Patrick's Day parades just grow and growing, how chaotic it was. So I was actually working downtown at East 17th and Euclid in the theater district. So I could see the parade from my office nice and clear. And that happened to be the year where St. Patrick's Day was like 60 or 70 degrees. It was ridiculously warm for that time. This was also very shortly after we had our boss gone and they moved me into management. I was in a tech support team. And my tech support guys, I noticed that the morale was kind of because of all the turbulence in the office. And I'm like, guys, it's St. Patrick's Day. Nobody's going to call us for support because they're all out there. They're all out there getting drunk and watching the parade, or they're in the parade. I'm like, so you guys just need to relax a little bit. And that whole listening thing, I heard that some of them had never even seen a St. Patrick's Day parade. I'm like, okay. I'm like, you guys all go downstairs, watch the parade, and when you're done, come back up. And they were all like, wait, what? We're still on the clock. Yes, I know, but you guys are also low morale. And I already have this trust and respect. I don't have to point that out to them. But I told them, I'm like, you guys go downstairs, watch the parade. When you're done, come back up and we'll get back to work. I'll watch the phones. I had the windows open, watching the parade myself. Parade ended about an hour, hour and a half later. They came back upstairs and we went back with the day. People were like, wait, that actually happened? They didn't get drunk? I'm like, if they were drinking, they would have brought beers up for me as well. Because we were that kind of team. We were that kind of team. But it's one of those that I knew that I could send them downstairs, and I knew that when they came back up, they would be refreshed. They would be a little bit more relaxed, which is what we need. So as a leader, sometimes you have to make those kind of decisions where it's like, that seems kind of weird and that seems kind of not right, but then when you see what that return on investment is, now you have happier workers who are doing their job and things are moving along better, and you have happier people on the phone who are talking to disgruntled clients, but they all of a sudden hear that happiness that they're actually settling down. It's genius. Why not? Yeah, command, not demand. Story behind this particular one was I was at a conference, introverted me, wasn't happy on a stage, and ended up being on a stage. And they were just like, well, how do you handle this? I'm like, simple. I come away from my podium and I go, hi guys, I'm one of you guys. When I do this, it's because it's like, you guys are all my big family. You're all here to see me and it's fun. But I always command. I always lead, and you guys all just trust me for some reason. So I don't demand it. Oh, this is another one of those stories. So I mentioned I'm Sudoku, and this is one of those groups that I kind of commanded. So I was in the classroom at the time, teaching people how to become developers. I was teaching Java at that point, and those are their names all around the circle. I had no idea this was even a thing until my last day with this group. at stand-up. So every day we did a stand-up, and we're like, okay, what are you working on? How's your project coming along? What do you need help with? And that whole group was like, talk to Amanda, have Amanda go first. You guys are weird. She's in the first third. You guys know I usually do halves or quarters, not thirds. It's a weird thing for me. But I'm like, okay, Amanda, you go first. And she's like, well, I guess I'm the trigger for this. And I'm like, trigger? And they all opened up their shirts, and they all had shirts made with a logo for the class and everything. I'm like, holy cow. 42 because, well, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Suzuki Squadron because that's what they ended up naming the team. They named their class. They named their class and made shirts. It was the coolest thing ever. It was like, oh, as a leader, I guess I can inspire this. So inspiration helps. Oh, link slides. Okay. So you don't have to have a chief financial officer, chief executive officer, chief information officer, chief technology officer, chief whatever officer. You don't need to have that title. You don't need to be a president, a vice president, an owner. You don't need to be a tech lead. You don't need to be a manager. Those are titles. Those are not who you are. Those are not the actions. Those are just positions. Not important. As leaders, we also need to be able to mentor our people. We need to mentor our team and make sure that we're listening to them, guiding them, helping them, seeing the best in them that they are probably not seeing, and encouraging them to be the best that they can be. There are times that as a leader, you're going to see somebody who you may see them for who they are, but some of the other teams would be like, well, that's an underperformer. Well, they're underperforming because they don't have enough of things getting sent to them, not enough opportunities. So we need to do something to help increase their potential. So we need to be able to mentor them. And empathy, putting yourself in their shoes. Not all those shoes all at once. Don't get that crazy. But imagine what it would be if you were leading you. How would you want to be led? How would you want to be talked to? How would you want to be treated? How would you want to be heard? Yeah, people don't care about how much you know. They want to know how much you care, how much you're treating them like regular people. How much you're going, okay, you know what? I know you're having a hard time with your family and that's leaving you stressed out and things aren't working well. Let's see what we can do to ease that. I've had many times working with junior developers who are far away from home. And so they're working on the project, and then it all falls apart toward the end. Until I realize it, and then I stop them. And I'm like, wait, time out. And they're like, what's wrong? I'm like, I see you're starting to be less productive. They're like, I'm sorry. I'm like, no. I'm like, you're being less productive because you're homesick. And they all look at me like, how did you even know? I'm like, guys, if I were away from my family for as long as you guys have been, I would be homesick too. Do me a favor, go out in the hall, go call your families. Go tell them that you love them. FaceTime, Skype. With modern technology, with video chat, do that. If I hadn't seen that enough times to know what it was, I would have been like, oh, they're just not picking it up. But for me, I care about my people, and I need to know that they have families, and this is what works. I had one who, he was struggling to understand what was going on for probably the first 5 weeks, which is a long struggle for people. And finally, I sat down next to him that day because I was in an assistant role at that point. And so I sat next to him and I said, okay, Brian, what's going on? He's like, I'm having a hard time staying focused, and it's just not coming to me. I'm like, what's your motivation? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, why are you going through this? Why are you putting yourself through this? And I'm like, I know why I work. I work because I want to make sure that I have money to keep a house over my children's head, make sure there's food on the table for them to eat, make sure they're clothed and not running around naked, even though that's what little kids like to do. So that's my motivation, and I usually put them as a background picture either on my phone or on my laptop, something there as that constant reminder. And when I told him that, he's like, I have these 4 kids, I have one who I adopted because we were told we can't have kids, and just as we were adopting that, the wife became pregnant with triplets. So I was like, wow. I'm like, so you have 5 reasons, those 4 kids and your wife, who are your motivation? He's like, yeah. I'm like, if you have any pictures of them whatsoever, put them on your background on your computer. Because the reason is, when you're done, you can minimize everything. You see that desktop, you see that constant reminder to help you realize how do you get through there. And once I saw that he had little kids, we started talking more and more. The more he talked about his family, the more he lit up, the more productive and more focused he got on his work. It's because I showed how much I care about him as a person and not just, oh, he's somebody who paid X amount of dollars to go through this program. I'm not a numbers person. I mean, yeah, I can calculate, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to make people better people overall. As leaders, we need to be transparent. There are times where people are going to be like, well, I hear this talking and I hear that talking. There's a lot of rumor mill going on in the office. If you're one of the leaders, probably want to squash that. Try to figure out the facts. Be transparent though. If you know something's going down, be fair to your team and be fair to the business and have those communications. Because if you're not transparent, if your team thinks that you're hiding something, you're going to start losing trust, you're going to start losing respect. And if it's something that impacts them really hard, ooh, that could be a pretty burnt bridge. We don't want to do that. We want to try to be transparent. Have those communications when you can. There are lots of benefits to being a servant leader, working in the trenches rather than working above the trenches. How many of you guys know XKCD? That's something you guys will find about me is I am all about the random internet comics, memes sometimes. But there's this time when you're dealing with end users. And so for me, being in tech support, so I got my Bachelor of Science in Computer Science in 2002, came back home to Cleveland, there were no jobs in the development side of things at that point. So I'm looking in the classifieds of the newspaper. Yes, I'm that old. Looking at newspaper classifieds for a job. Answered it and saw that they were looking for someone in tech support. Loved it. Tech support was fun. But the people, the things that they say, whew, if I didn't have a lot of that experience of answering the phones and dealing with the people, I wouldn't have believed half the stories. I really wouldn't. Like the guy with the password. So working for tech support for an internet service provider means lots of password questions, lots of password resets. And we had reset this guy's password and we were going through, and we're like, yeah, it's A, B, capital C, 8, 5. He's like, was that a capital 8? I'm like, and I was listening to this, well, one of my other techs was taking the call, and I looked at her, I'm like, did he just say capital 8? Capital 8, ooh. And she's like, how do I handle that? I'm like, just say, yes, capital 8. Or lowercase 8, either 8 will work in this case. She's laughing. But being in the trenches, you're experiencing what they're doing. You're experiencing that pain point right then and there. You start to help build your empathy as well, because as you're feeling the pain, when you have to wear that leadership hat, you already know what that pain feels like. You can put yourself in their shoes and go, okay, if I was a person doing this, how would I want my boss to help me in this situation? What's nice too, when you're working in the trenches together, you're working alongside your team, you're building that trust. Day to day, you're going to learn how each other works. You'll learn to play to each other's strengths. And the leader in you will see where your team is weak and work to make those weaknesses stronger. Better, not more weak. What's nice too when you're in the trenches is you're the ears to the ground because you are on the ground. You're listening to when they're afraid of something happening or when they're excited to see some kind of change. You're there listening when they're like, you know what, this process is awful. It sucks. Why is it so painful? Why does this take so slow? Why do I have to fill out so much paperwork? You're there listening to that. You can then carry that forward and go, you know what, this process is painfully slow because we have this paperwork that needs to be entered in this access database, then export it to CSV to put it in this system to then do. Why does it need to be that complex? We can make it that much easier by doing straight to the system. By being the ears to the ground, you can hear those pain points, you can hear those suggestions, and you can carry those forward. And as a leader, If other leaders in the system see you, they're going to respect that. They're going to respect that feedback even more so. So as a leader, it's your responsibility to carry that forward. The ear of the leader must ring with the voices of the people. We need to be able to carry the voices of our team. And when I say carry the voices of our team, as a team, you form this entity, this massive, we as a team operate like this. We have these thoughts. When you carry that forward, you need to make sure you're carrying everybody's thoughts and not just your own personal preferences. It's tough as a leader at times because there are going to be times when your team's like, we need to do this, and you might disagree with it. But in reality, does your idea really, is it the end of the world if it's not your idea? It's something to think about, but you should be carrying the best interest of the team forward. And the other benefit of the trenches is it's easier to get them what they need because it's easier to know what they need, where those pain points are. Now, the whole point of this talk, though, isn't just servant leadership, but we're techies, too. We're geeks. We want to stay technical. That was something that, as a speaker, I was always afraid of, was doing soft skill talks would make me look less technical. Talking about data science stuff tomorrow. So I'm still technical. But how do I stay technical while still leading and still working in the trenches? I get into the community. If you're not sure where to start in your community, meetup.com or doing a search for the phrase tech events on Eventbrite will get you down the right direction. Any technical interest that's out there, there's probably a group for that. User groups, think of them as like 12-step groups, only that habit will never go away. And it's a good problem to have. So things like our user group, a SQL user group, an Agile user group, you name it, there's probably a user group for it. If there isn't, it might be an opportunity for you to start one. But get into the community, because if you get into your tech community, follow your heart, follow your interests of the technical side, that'll help get you going. And it'll help keep you technical and you won't feel so rusty. Also have a side project. So my side project right now has been this awful table. I claim no ownership of the layout. That was my husband. He's an IT guy. So he's on the hardware infrastructure side, database tables, not so much. But this is sensor data. We have sensors all throughout our house, checking humidity and temperature, and then I deal with graphing it. And I'm playing with R, Python, and SQL Server, and that's my side project. Why do I do that? One, I love data. If you ever talk with me, I light up about data. It's always been a passion of mine. So for me, last year at CodeMash, I took the R workshop, and that continued to ignite my excitement. And so I ended up working with this a bit more. Now I speak about this. So I have a side project that will allow you to continue to exercise your technical skills. Contribute to open source. Now, I know you're thinking as leaders, because some of us get this as leaders with imposter syndrome, who are like, I'm a leader, my skills are rusty in tech. If you ever see my programming, you'd understand that. When you get removed from the code enough, you do feel rusty. My code's not suitable for public, is it? You'd be surprised. Some of the stuff in open source, it's not that scary, and there's plenty of things you can do. You can fix bugs. Maybe you can write additional features. And if you're one of those who's like, you know what, my coding skills are still kind of rusty, I'm not sure that this is the right thing for me, you can also help write documentation on how to use it. Open source desperately needs it. John's like, yes, yes, yes. Yeah. And I think that's, for me, I've always been afraid of exposing my code because my coding skills are rusty. But documents, I love writing, so I think that's where you'll see me a lot more this year. But if you want to stay technical, contribute to open source projects related to that. And of course, do lunch and learns. How many of you guys are doing lunch and learns now? We see some of you. For those of you who don't know what lunch and learns are, they don't have to be this fancy. This was a conference lunch some time ago. But you guys can get together maybe in a conference room somewhere. Have everybody bring their lunches and talk about a topic that you guys are interested in technically. You can do this as an informal, hey, we're all getting together thing. Or I've seen companies do internal user groups where they say, okay, I have my dev team. What kind of topics do you want? And they'll bring in speakers to talk about that. They're great ways to learn your skills It's usually more affordable than the gigantic conferences. Because I know companies are like, oh, budgets, we can't afford all these big speakers. Well, you find a way to keep your team relevant by doing stuff like this. Finally, I want to end with this quote, which is, progress doesn't happen all at once, it's slow. But a commitment to serving as an agent of positive change will bring us one step closer. As servant leaders, we're committed to serving our team, and it should be toward positive change. So this is one of my favorite quotes with that. Are there any questions? All right, if there are no questions, we can continue this discussion outside of here. So this QR code, or there's also a URL to a site called flipgrid.com. Give me your feedback. What were your takeaways? What questions do you have? What's nice is you guys can record a video of you asking me the question, and I can reply with a video back. So you can say, hey, Sarah, what was the name of that book again? And then I'll reply, and I'll say it was Leading from the Heart by Kahl. Here's the ISBN, and here's where you can find it. But you'll have a video of me saying that. So I found flipgrid.com. I learned about it this past December at an online summit for educators. And I was like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, cool, they're actually talking with each other. And I participated with one of those online Twitter chats. They were using Flipgrid to actually interact. It was so cool. So if you guys have questions or want to leave feedback, please go ahead and do that. Also, in your Attendee Hub apps on your phone, if you check into the session, it'll help keep track of the numbers. Leave feedback there as well. Love hearing your thoughts on what works, what doesn't work, and what I can do to help. So thank you all.